The following broadcast is a Nighthawk Network presentation. Hey, what's going on, good people? E-Buck in the building, and this is my Big Buck Sports Report. What's going on? Hopefully, y'all having a good week so far, and you definitely had time to check out all the great sports that's been going on throughout the country, throughout the world for that matter. And the last week or so, let's talk about it. We're gonna get through as much of it as we can here, and we're gonna give you that additional hour that is the Guru Sports session as well after this. So, anything that I might miss, I may have perhaps discussed on that as well. Let's get started first and foremost. Definitely checked out the Final Four this weekend, both men's and women's. Let me give you some thoughts on both of those. Of course, I think most of us are in agreement that the women's tournament was the far better of the two this year, something that probably we would never thought we'd say 10 years ago, let alone ever, but that is the case. I defy you, for those of you who, unless you are a fan of a particular team, to name 5 all-star type players on the men's side right now. I'll wait. Exactly. That being said, we did have the person who was voted today the best player in the country. That would be Zach Edey of the Purdue Boilermakers. His squad was one of the 4 teams on the men's side. They first faced a North Carolina State team that basically probably shouldn't have been there, but definitely was the best story that we had in the tournament, at least one of them, in terms of how they got to be in the Final Four. Remember, this was a team that had lost its last 4 regular season games going into the ACC tournament, then managed to be one of the lowest seeds to win all 5 games that they had to play just to win that tournament, just to qualify to be in the big dance, understanding that their coach basically was on the verge of being fired before all that began. So now, of course, he is going to receive a nice raise because of his play in the tournament. That being said, they got to the Final Four, and that's as far as they got. Zach Edey was very dominant in that game. At 7'4", they basically had no real answers for him. DJ Burns played a good game. A couple of his counterparts showed up. The rest of the team, not so much as a result. Not a great game. Definitely not a great result for North Carolina because of North Carolina State, I should say. They did indeed lose that game and had to face the winner of UConn, Alabama, which is definitely more of a competitive contest. Absolutely. What happened there was the Alabama squad definitely came to play. They gave UConn a great effort, particularly in that first half, but in the second half, UConn too many weapons, too big inside, too much great defense on their end, shut down Alabama's ability to score from long range, and as a result, won that game pretty handily going into the final game. Of course, the final game was Monday night. Very lackluster. First half, was all right. You know, Zach Edey did come to play. Definitely a quality big man. Understand if this was 20 years ago, teams would be licking their lips, couldn't wait to draft that dude as the number 1 pick. But because we have a different NBA these days where the focus is on people who can score from all over the world, basically, 3-point range, 2-point range, regardless of size, positionless basketball, as they like to call it. Zach Edey probably won't go quite as high as he should because of that. We do have people coming in with comments. Let's see who we have here. Of course, we got our good friend Road to Stardom checking in. What's going on, Road? Thanks for checking into the show as always. Let's take a quick break as we talk men's basketball Final Four, because, of course, I always want to acknowledge my good friend Road to Stardom by giving her flowers now with this promo.
Radio on Blog Talk Radio or where most great music podcasts are located. Don't forget to subscribe and show some love.
Yes, please check out Road to Stardom broadcast, podcast, radio, pod show. It's a little bit of all of that. I particularly like 6 in Road this week. Road, where you guys talked about the whole country music situation with Beyonce and the basically sharing of the culture with us as African Americans. And I had a very in-depth discussion on that. I very much like that. I wish I could have actually heard that live. I wish I could have joined in that discussion for that matter. It was very thorough, and I liked a lot about what you talked about, particularly with the various artists and appropriating certain songs. It was just a very in-depth discussion. Y'all can check that out on Spotify. And like I said, most of the podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that good stuff. Please check her out. And then again, the way Road to Stardom works is some nights you'll get those discussions. Some nights you'll get different types and genres of music. You'll get a little country. You'll get some gospel. You get, of course, the indie music that she is definitely known for. You get some R&B. You definitely get her going in the stacks and grabbing some of them B-sides and playing those. Definitely like that. Got to talk to you soon, world, about some things that I want to do in the future, perhaps some collaborations even. We will definitely have a discussion sometime soon, I do hope. In the meanwhile, let's get back to the show. Like I said, we were talking men's basketball, Final Four. Again, in the end, it was UConn. It was going to be UConn. I do believe I picked UConn even in the very beginning of the season to repeat as champions, and they did exactly that. Definitely shout out to Dan Hurley. Excellent job in coaching those young men, and hopefully they will compensate him thusly for being a 2-time champion and make sure they lock him in the stores for the upcoming and foreseeable future. That would be awesome. But again, that was the secondary sports of the weekend. The primary one was the women's Final Four. For the first time ever, I feel like the women's sport is finally getting its due as being great competitive basketball. And definitely those games in the Final Four for the women's were definitely more competitive than the men's games. Let's look at those right quick. First of all, in the first game, we had South Carolina versus North Carolina State, as they both, the men and women's, made it to the Final Four and were not supposed to. So I'm pretty sure if you are an alum or presently going to North Carolina State, you feel proud about what your teams have accomplished this season of college basketball, as they both pretty much went beyond where we thought they would go. That being said, North Carolina made a game of it. North Carolina State made a game of it early on in that game, but South Carolina had too many weapons for them to overcome. In the end, the big woman in the middle, Miss Cardoso, was too much for anybody on that squad to contend with. And when she wasn't dominating the boards or the posts, the rest of the people chimed in with their collaborations. And again, just too many weapons for North Carolina State. They had a great season. They are to be commended for getting as far as they did, but they just were out, man. I don't think they would have beat any of the other 3 teams if they, for some crazy reason, had beat South Carolina anyway. But good for them to have made it. Thanks for participating. You can now move on. The game of the night, though, Friday, clearly was my UConn Lady Huskies, who you know I am a big fan of, against the Iowa Hawkeyes and the basketball darling of the world right now, one Caitlin Clark. Now, before I get into the game, let me just say I think it is very unfair, some of the criticism that Caitlin Clark is getting from the masses, particularly some of the folks that look like myself, because she is getting her time in the limelight. Without question, you must be completely and totally honest. If you are a true basketball fan, she is the top player coming out of college this season, beyond a shadow of a doubt. If you feel any differently, I think you are foolish and just don't know your basketball. Either that or you're playing these cards, and you should not be playing the race card in this point. Caitlin Clark is an outstanding young basketball player. Please give her respect. That being said, she definitely earned it on Friday night, basically taking what the defense was giving her or not giving her in the case of UConn and doing the best to empower her teammates to help her win that game. Now, I do say that, kind of in the sorry great smoke, because I am a UConn fan. If UConn had its full accompaniment of players, no doubt about it, they would have won that game. If UConn was not so powerfully tired from basically just playing 5 and 6 players for most of the season, I feel they would have won that game. If they just would have had either one more quality post player or one more person they could have threw at Caitlin Clark to give Mika Mew a rest at times, I feel like they would have won it. It was just that close a game. That being said, Caitlin Clark did her thing. Almost had a triple-double that game, played a great game. The great Paige Beckers had a good game, not a great game. I think she was tired. I really think that's what it was. Remember, she is coming off of that injury, and she has played most of the season and played most of the season. In an ideal world, if you're coming off an extensive knee injury like that, it probably was not in her best interest to play as many minutes during the season as she did, but yet she got it done and she finished the season healthy. I'm thankful for that. Hopefully they have a healthy offseason. Oftentimes the UConn's last few years, it is the offseason where these injuries occur. I need them to do a better job with the strength and conditioning program and whatever running program they're doing that's causing all these leg and knee and ankle injuries. I need them to cut down on it some in order for them to have a full roster next year and be a part of the mix. That would be helpful. So, when all said and done, that left us with, of course, the good old Iowa Hawkeyes and, of course, South Carolina. The two teams that met in last year's Final Four in the Final Four round now meeting in the championship game. Was it a good game? Absolutely. That first half, outstanding. Caitlin Clark started out the game on fire, hitting from long range and long range. It looked like she was about to hit them off with a good 40 or 50. Did not happen, though, because the defense clamped down and the game plan of the great coach Dawn Staley came into fruition. In the end, so many great women players on that South Carolina squad. When you look at people like Tessa Johnson, you look at Malaysia Fulwiley, whose name I finally learned how to say at the end of the season. Of course, you have Miss Cardosa in the middle. You have Ashley Watkins. You have Tahina Pow. Just so many great women's players on that squad coming together to dominate, particularly in that second half, and shut down Iowa, particularly the rest of the squad, even though Caitlin Clark, pretty much after that first quarter, only had 12 points the rest of the game. My good partner Hugh checking in. Coach Gino Auriemma be working like they're men, and understand that in that practice, they do practice against men a lot. I wouldn't even be surprised if they practice against the men's team, which would be rather impressive considering the men's team at UConn. That would probably be quite a practice. But definitely want to give credit to the great coach Gino Auriemma, one of the greats of the sport, but not the winner. This time the winner, of course, was South Carolina. So want to give the full credit to Coach Dawn Staley, okay? A coach who has definitely earned her stripes over the years. She has been not only a great player, former two-time National Player of the Year. She's also been a former Olympic gold medalist. She has coached Olympic gold medal teams along with Coach Gino Auriemma, and now she is a three-time women's national champion as a coach and soon to probably be a two-time Hall of Famer. She's already won as a player, should definitely be one as a coach as well. Just in listening to her after game comments, you can't do nothing but be impressed by her. Very God-fearing woman, fashion style, the whole shebang bang. It is definitely good to be Dawn Staley right now. And of course, she is bringing back most of those players that played in that championship game, along with one of the better recruiting classes and a couple good people out of the portal as well. Definitely look to see South Carolina in the mix next year for a championship yet again, along with my UConn Huskies, who along with everything else, got the #1 recruit in this year's class, one Sarah Strong. If you don't know about Sarah Strong, by all means, look up her highlights on YouTube. Definitely impressive. She kind of reminds me a bit of Maya Moore mixed with Candace Parker. Put those two together and see what you get. That's kind of where Sarah Strong is at this point, at just the age of 18. Once playing in Gino Oriana's program, or he'll probably have her not shoot as many of those threes that you see her shooting, but definitely be dominant in the mid-range and low post. Yeah, she's going to be a problem for years to come, I'm pretty sure. Not to mention adding back most of those players that were hurt this year. When you take people like Paige Beckers, then of course AZ Flood should be back. You got Adrian Griffin's daughter. She should be back as well for UConn. And then of course Effie, the lady that you have not seen, 6'6", the girl from Egypt that did not get to play because of her injury last year. You're going to put all that in the mix along with what they got. Yes, it's going to look pretty nice over there in stores for the next couple of years, I'm sure. But yeah, all in all, women's basketball, very, very good. Looking forward to seeing some of those talented people in the WNBA next year. Of course, the WNBA draft is next week. Looking forward to checking that out. And WNBA action should be starting in the next 3-4 weeks. Looking forward to that season as well. Definitely need to start expanding that league so that more of these young ladies coming out will have places to play in country. And also we need to start making sure that we take advantage of this opportunity that the eyes of the world have now put on the women's basketball so that they can start getting paid more of a competitive rate in terms of what they get paid in the WNBA as well. Some of those women deserve to be millionaires from playing here in the United States, not just here and overseas. That part. Anyway, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to switch the basketball talk to what's going on in the NBA. This is the Big Buck Sports Report. I'm your boy E-Buck. Be right back. Big Buck Sports Report is back. We got more comments coming in. Hey, Hugh, what's good? Do you think Ice Cube should start a women's Big Three? That's an excellent question, Ro. I actually did think about that the other night. Not only do I eventually think in the next couple of years there will be a women's version of the Big Three, because that only makes perfect sense to do, especially when you consider some of the people that's about to come out of the league. The Diana Taurasi's, the Sue Birds, the Brittany Grinders of the world that's getting up there in age. But also, I think at some point there should be a women's G League as well, where people don't have to go overseas, but they can actually play competitive basketball that will get them some money here in the States. So, yeah, I do think Ice Cube should start a women's Big Three, and I also think they should start a women's G League as well. There is kind of sort of such a league already in place, but it's not really formalized. It's kind of like centralized to certain states and whatnot. I think if they can kind of figure a way to do that. But the most important thing I would like to see is more women supporting more women in women's basketball so that the advertisement is geared toward them. I like to see more of them at the games. It was great to see a lot of the venues for the Final Four this year being packed out. The fact that the women's basketball Final Four ticket was worth more than the men's basketball Final Four ticket should give you some idea of what the game could truly be if they put forth the resources and efforts that they've put into it this year. Keeping in mind that, for example, in the 40-game season coming up in the WNBA, the Indiana Fever, who will have the #1 pick, which more than likely will be Caitlin Clark, will have 36 of their 40 games televised on somebody's network this year. If they could do that for them, I imagine they could do that for most of the other 11 teams in the league as well. I would definitely love to see it. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Let's move on. NBA, we are getting into the final week of the season here, and we're getting down to playoff time. It's not so much to talk about in terms of that. Most of the teams that's in the playoff picture now are in there. They will be in there. I don't think it's an issue, especially when you look at the teams like Denver and Minnesota and teams like that on the West. And then, of course, Boston definitely in, your Milwaukee's and Cleveland, so on and so forth. Of course, the big push for this last week is the play-in tournament and who's going to make it into those slots. It's crazy how the West being so competitive, some of the better players in the league, particularly some of the better older players, are the ones looking to try to get into the play-in game. When you got teams like the Lakers with LeBron and, of course, AD. You got teams like Phoenix, of course, with KD and Booker and company. You got teams like Golden State, of course, with, of course, the great shooter of all time in terms of hitting that shot. That would be Steph Curry and his splash brother Clay. And, of course, the often maligned Draymond Green on that squad. Those teams probably will make the playing game in terms of what position. That's what these last few games will pretty much determine. That will make the playing game interesting, at least on the West side. On the East, not so much. Then, of course, another thing that's bothering this playoff push is something that Roe wants to get into now. Do you think the Bucks will survive without Giannis? Okay. Here's where we are, good people. Injuries are starting to plague important teams in this final couple weeks. We got AD with the facial injury. I think he'll be fine by playoff time. Not worried about him. Then, of course, we had the injury that happened to Giannis, which we learned today is some type of lower leg, ankle bruise type situation. They were afraid that it was basically his Achilles. It has shown that there's no real damage to the Achilles at this point. But what they're saying is the ankle bruise that Giannis had, or the heel bruise, whatever the case may be, is very similar to what Kevin Durant had a few years ago with Golden State, where he decided to finally go ahead and play in the playoffs, and which led to him hurting his Achilles and putting him out for the better part of a year and some change. So my thing is this. Will the Bucks do the right thing by the Bucks? In an ideal world, if I feel like we definitely have a chance to win this playoff without a doubt, I'm riding out Giannis the rest of the regular season, as it looks like they will do. I'll probably ride out the first round of the playoffs without Giannis. And then I would reinsert him in the second and go from there. If I feel like there's any possible way that the franchise will hurt himself and cause irreparable damage that will last for years to come, Giannis is done for the year. If it's my personal choice, I got to shut Giannis down. I understand you invested all that money in getting Damian Lillard and all that good stuff, but yeah, I don't think you have the type of firepower, even with a fully healthy Giannis, to win this year's NBA championship. So I myself, I'd shut him down. Now, there's also the issue of one Joel Embiid, who is now back playing and playing relatively well, but we know it's still not 100%. You can see that by some of the play. Would I risk it on him? In his case, I would say yes. He is always hurt. He seems like he will always be hurt. It's something about being 7'1" and that size that has been bothersome to his body since the very beginning. And of course, that's something you definitely got to think about with people like Zach Edey when you consider drafting him. I understand. I just said that I felt like he would be a good lottery pick, but it's something about being that big and weighing that much, going back and forth, up and down for 82-game season plus preseason and such. It's something you definitely got to take a thought process behind. So yeah, I think the Bucks definitely have a chance if he is healthy enough to play within himself and make it worthwhile for the Boston Celtics. But at this point, at least from the East standpoint, I feel like it's Boston's half of the bracket to lose. I'm not even going to consider the rest of the people in the playoffs right now. They're just not showing me enough to show me that they could beat Boston in the East. It's pretty much Boston, somewhere in there, Philadelphia, slightly under there, Milwaukee, then everybody else. That part. And the play-in on that side of the bracket with the Hawks and the Bulls, and no thank you. No thank you. far as the West goes, like I said, playing will definitely be interesting because of who's in the play-in. But right now, as you know, it's pretty much looking like the champs, which are Denver, Milwaukee, and Sacramento and such. They kind of somewhere around mumble jumbled up in there. And then you got the Lakers and all that with the realm of possibilities. The West definitely should be the better playoffs. It usually is anyway. And I will say and continue to say, do not sleep. I repeat, do not sleep on the team from New Orleans. The Pelicans going into this playoff healthy, the way they've been looking lately, if we can get Zion to be Zion to the fullest extent and the rest of them follow lead, they're going to be a problem in these playoffs. Remember, I said it. And then, of course, you definitely got to get Kyrie healthy over there for Dallas because they, too, between him and, of course, the man with the master plan over there, Doncic, they, too, could be a problem if fully healthy based on what they have to complement them with. Definitely a better team than they were last year when they didn't quite make the playoffs. So, yeah, looking forward to the NBA playoffs. Just not as exciting as they have been the last few years. It definitely was more exciting watching the college game, to be quite honest. All right, that's that much. Let's now talk about some baseball. We are into the first couple weeks of the baseball season. Me and Hugh had a whole different discussion in regards to baseball. I'm just going to talk about the season in general right now. Right now, in the first couple weeks, here are our leaders in the clubhouse after a couple weeks of baseball. You got the Yankees with the best record in baseball right now at 10-2. Not surprised by that. I felt like the Yankees would get off to a good start this season. They are hitting decently. The pitching is doing okay. But again, my concern is what happens when they get to about June. What happens with their starting pitching? As you know, Garrett Cole, Cy Young Award winner, is out for them. And if one more starter gets unhealthy sooner than later, I can see that being an issue. There's always that part of the season where the Yankee hitters start to get unhealthy as well, particularly people like Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge, because they are bigger players and the wear and tear seems to get to them after a while for whatever reason. We'll see how that plays out. Surprised that Boston is playing a little better than I thought they would. And Baltimore not quite as good as I thought they'd be early on. In the Central, you got Cleveland leading the Central 8-3. Meanwhile, my Detroit Tigers right behind them at 7-4. Tigers basically been fortunate. They've been playing a lot of bad teams so far, with the exception of the two games they played with Pittsburgh that look very good. They got to get that hitting together. Tigers got to hit the baseball. Right now, they have not brought most of that batting equipment to the majors from playing in the preseason. Just not hitting the ball the way they need to in order to win consistently. Pitchers looked very good for the most part, particularly people like Stubble, who looked very good until he didn't. You know, he does give us the occasional home run ball, but beyond that, he's pitched outstanding thus far. In the West, we got the Texas Rangers at 6-5. That's enough to be leading the West, but not quite as good as you would expect from the World Series champs. Pitching is the issue with them right now. They are definitely hitting the ball well. Keep in mind that they play in warm weather environments more times than not, definitely to their advantage. They are hitting well. The pitching, not quite where it needs to be. That is why they are kind of there. But the West is kind of a weakened version of itself from last year. Houston in particular, who are playing some awful baseball right now. And I don't understand why. They still have a lot of those good hitters that they had last year. Pitching is still pretty decent. They just not quite in sync yet. That's that. So anyway, American League covered. National League, we got the Atlanta Braves at 7-3, leading the NL East, although their best pitcher Strider is out now with arm issues. Again, we'll talk about some of the reasons why that may be affected in the Guru Sports session. But yeah, they definitely need Strider back if they are going to win the big one this year. He is their best pitcher. He is the only pitcher last year that won 20 games. They need him back, and they need him fully healthy. So if they need to shut him down for a little bit longer. I suggest they do. Mets not playing the best of baseball right now, Ro. Of course, you have a couple good hitters like Alonso and the shortstop Lindor that's playing decent ball, but overall, it's the pitching for them. Remember, when they got rid of Verlander and Scherzinger last year, they haven't replaced them with anything, and it shows. They're not playing good baseball in New York on that side of New York, at least at the moment. Gotta find some pitching over there with the Mets. That is the issue with them. Okay, we got also in the Central Division, Pittsburgh. I told you guys to look out for the Pittsburgh Pirates, man. They playing some good baseball over there. They got some scrappy people on that squad, and that kid Ella Cruz. If you haven't seen him play, you want to check him out. He is a great young baseball player, along with Dela Cruz for Cincinnati. That's kind of in the middle of the pack right now. That dude's still doing some incredible things. He had a play a couple nights ago where he hit an inside the park home run. He's all of about 6'4.5". That dude can fly. I imagine if he could have caught a football, he would have been a great wide receiver. Indeed, indeed. Anyway, of course, in the West, you have the Dodgers that are leading the West. That should come as no surprise. Only surprise there that they are 10-5, and the pitching is not quite up to par of what you thought it would. The other pitching acquisition they got, Yakamoto, not quite as advertised just yet. And of course, you have the great one himself, Shohei Ohtani, playing decent. But the thing that's leading the Dodgers right now, the person who is definitely proven to be the best player in the league at the moment, would be, of course, the great Mookie Betts. Hitting, sliding, catching, throwing. He doing it all over there. He is showing up and showing out every night. He makes the Dodgers worth the price of admission in and of himself. Playing some great baseball. So definitely check out the Dodgers when you get a chance. I'm pretty sure you will, because if you look at the television schedule, most of the games that they'll be showing are the usual suspects. Yankees, Dodgers, Braves, Boston. You know, the big markets. You know how they do it. You know what it is. Anyway, that's what's going on in baseball. All right, we're going to keep the party going. UFL, United Football League. Anybody checked it out? These last couple, you know, I clowned on my boy Hugh Lee for not really investing fully into it that first week. He definitely did look at it differently the second week. Again, he'll talk about that on the football or the sports section that's coming right after this show here. He will give you his breakdown of it. Definitely some good football being played over there. I am actually pleasantly surprised. I think because there's just the 8 teams and they seem to have been pulling more from the NFL pool than in the past, we are getting some better football. It's definitely a better defensive play football than offensively. Some of the offenses still need some work. Some of the quarterback play, not so great. I'm not particularly pleased with the quarterback we have for the Michigan Panthers, E.J. Perry. He don't really do it for me. But definitely some good players on all those squads, and definitely some players I think we will see in the National Football League next season, as early as that. So hopefully that will continue. Remember, there's a 10-week schedule in the UFL, so if you haven't had the time to check them out, do so. I think another thing that's hurting the UFL is the fact that they don't have a lot, or they basically don't have any teams that side of the Mississippi outside of Houston. I do believe they have a Houston team. Beyond that, everybody else is in Memphis and, of course, Michigan and so on and so forth. They need to figure out some way to get a Phoenix team, an LA team, something like that. That probably would help the product. Anyway, moving on. What else we got here on the docket? Hockey playoffs. For you hockey fans out there, you got anybody you're looking at? Right now, the hockey playoffs are also about a week or so away. My Detroit Red Wings are right there on the verge. They didn't play quite so well against the Capitals last night, so playoff chances looking a little shady. They're right there on the verge of the play-in or what have you. The wild card, need them to finish up strong. Still kind of in their hand. I think if they win all the rest of their games, that gets them in the playoffs. If not, then they just missed it. Just missed it. Not so good. Rangers and Islanders, I do believe both of those teams are currently set up to be in the playoffs at the moment. Rangers, I believe, is the better of the two teams right now. Of course, the best player in the National Hockey League would be Mr. Matthews, who plays for the Toronto Blue Jays. Oh my goodness, look at me. The Toronto Maple Leafs. I think hockey as a whole would definitely be better served if they somehow, some way find a way for one of the Canadian teams to win the Stanley Cup this year. I think hockey needs that very badly, not only for Canada itself, but for hockey, to where if we can have a team win from Canada and then have an American rival, that rivalry could help fuel the sport and make it better and more popular. Particularly if you have a couple superstars on those teams with some type of personality pizzazz. Just ain't got a lot of that going in the NHL right now. Not at all. And some of the better players are some of the older players. The Patrick Kanes here with the Red Wings. Of course, the great Sid the Kid Crosby. Pittsburgh, look at me. Pittsburgh Penguins. Then, of course, the Washington Capitals and the great eight himself, Alex Ovechkin. But they all getting up there, man. They all getting up there in years. We need some new superstars to break out and have some, have some marketability, have something you can rally behind. That part. Anyway, moving on with the update. Of course, got soccer season for those of y'all that ain't interested in none of this. None of it at all. You can watch a little soccer. You got MLS going on the men's side. You got the NWSL, the women's soccer league, on the other side, with several of the women and men that are going to be in the Olympics on both sides of the agenda. In both of those leagues, of course, the great one himself, Mr. Nessie, is playing in the Miami squad for MLS. And, he had been hurt for a while, but I believe he's back, so you might want to check it out. For those of you who have the Apple situation, whether you have Apple phone or Apple tablet as I do, the MLS is definitely featured on the Apple product, so you could check out several of those games there. All right. What else I got? Oh, well, let me not forget this. When we come back, for my wrestling people here in the network, I will give you my rundown of what I thought of WrestleMania 40. Let's just talk about it when we get back. I got some interesting thoughts, pro, con, and otherwise. Big Buck Sports Report, WrestleMania talk when we get back. Okay.
Hello, hello, hello. It's another glorious day, my T-Sippers, and you know what time it is. I hope you have all of your comforts together because it's time to dish tea. And you're dishing tea, darlings, with Big Meat.
Can't wait. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat.
Darling.
Hold up. Hold up.
All right, we are back into the Big Buck Sports Report. E-Buck in the building talking sports with you guys. Before we get into our WrestleMania talk, I want to talk about something else that is very key to what's going on after the season that has been college basketball. We are now getting into something that is known as the infamous transfer portal. Pretty much every day this week since the season has ended, We are getting news of people entering the transfer portal to find a new school to go to. If you thought college basketball wasn't interesting enough, this transfer portal thing has definitely added some major interest into it. 3 of the top returning players in the country on the women's side alone have already entered the transfer portal. We're talking about people like Miss Omori from Virginia Tech, who is moving on from Virginia Tech after having a great season over there. We're talking about people like Haley Van Lith, who had a pretty decent season over there at LSU. She has entered the transfer portal to play another season elsewhere. And I imagine we will have several other players from some of the bigger schools and several players from the smaller schools entering the transfer portal, either get a better deal elsewhere or basically play closer to home or find some place that's going to get them a good NIL deal. It's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out. You know, like I said, I think it's those big 4 squads next year that's definitely going to be the ones to watch. That would be LSU, UConn, USC, and of course South Carolina. Those 4 teams you definitely want to keep an eye on. All the other squads will make things interesting. Like I said, you got Michigan that got a decent recruiting class. You got teams like Notre Dame bringing back 2 of their better players next season. Don't sleep on teams like Maryland. They're going to have some good players on their end. Just the fact that we got teams switching divisions next year. Remember, Pac-12 is gone. No more. And as a result, those teams are going to various different conferences. You got some of the Pac-12 going to the Big Ten. You got some of the Pac-12 going to the SEC. You got some of the Pac-12 going to the ACC. So definitely going to make things interesting in those particular conferences, particularly the Big Ten, that already has some decent basketball. But when you add a USC, a UCLA, and Oregon, who all had very good programs this year, both men's and women's, definitely going to make for some very good basketball being played next year in that. Then, of course, you still have some of the football players also interested in the transfer portal as well, keeping in mind that the Pac-12 is defunct. That part. And before I move on, there are a couple interesting coaching moves that I want to talk about. Then we definitely going to get into the wrestling before we finish up this part of the report. First of all, there is John Calipari, who spent the last 15 seasons at the University of Kentucky. He has decided that he wants to move on and coach at Arkansas. Now, a very interesting article in regards to that has come out in regards to his switch, keeping in mind that one of his very good friends, one of his golfing buddies, is Mr. Tyson. Tyson as in Tyson. Tyson, does that sound familiar? It probably should, because he is, in fact, the owner of the Tyson Food Group. So basically, for those of you who love chicken like myself, you have definitely heard that name Tyson because you've seen it on a lot of your chicken products. What's going on, Charles? Needless to say, that Tyson brand is a very lucrative brand. Then, of course, you also have some other big donors that are from that Arkansas school, among them being Jerry Jones. Y'all know Jerry Jones, right? And, of course, one of the owners of the Walton Food Group, which is basically the people that own Walmart. So when you look at some of those boosters and the type of money that they could pour into the program, I think that definitely led to the decision by Coach Calipari to move on to greener pastures. Charles says he loves chicken as well. Understood, my brother, understood. Good quality grub there. Here's the thing. Hugh points out in his part of Bro Craft, and of course on his Sports Guru's Perspective that you can find on Spotify and also the Anchor platform, that he feels like Coach Calipari is one of the most disloyal people that he has ever seen in regards to him switching from school to school over the years. I feel like personally he owes Kentucky nothing. He gave them 15 years, a national championship, and think about it, pretty much every other team in the NBA right now has one of his Connecticut one of his Kentucky Wildcat players on that squad. You look at the John Walls, you look at the Devin Booker, Anthony Davis, Gail Shickers Alexander. The list goes on and on and on. Tyrese Maxey. All those people played for Kentucky during the time Calipari has been coached. So even if he didn't get the amount of championships Kentucky would have liked from him, they definitely got a legacy of many, many great players on that squad. I don't feel as you do about it, Hugh. I feel like basically in this day and age of NIL deals and entering the transfer portal, basically he just did the coach's version of it. And he entered the transfer portal and went with Arkansas. They're going to pay him more money, give him more resources, give him more NIL money to get players there. Why not? All right, Charles wants to announce to us that his birthday is coming up on the 28th of this month. That is great, Charles. Happy early birthday to you, sir. Of course, my great partner in crime, Mr. Hugh Lee, his birthday is coming up as well. In fact, it will be next Tuesday. That's why you will not see a Guru's football session, or will you have the Guru Sports Perspective, because that brother is going to be getting it in that week as he should. He has earned that right. Celebrate his born day. Let that brother be great and do so, but please make sure you wish him a happy birthday next week. We would appreciate that. In the meanwhile, before we head on out on this version of the Big Bus Sports World, definitely want to talk WrestleMania 40 and my thoughts on it. First of all, I would say overall, it was the best, worst, good WrestleMania I have seen. Understand, I have been alive for all 40 WrestleManias. I have viewed, at least partially viewed, all 40 WrestleManias, okay? It was just something special about the first one, okay? In terms of WrestleMania, I don't think any of them rank higher than the first one to me, because in the end, it was the first one and it meant that much. Then there are certain ones that mean a little more to me than other folks. Of course, when Macho Man first won the title, I believe that was WrestleMania 3. That one was a special one for me. Definitely like the one where Hulk Hogan went against the Ultimate Warrior. That was a good WrestleMania. The WrestleMania with Macho Man and the Warrior fought for the right to stay in WWE. That was a good one. Then, of course, the Attitude Era, a lot of good WrestleManias there with Stone Cold and The Rock and all that. All that being said, let's get to this year's WrestleMania 2-night event. I don't know if it's wise to continue that tradition. I do believe they will, because you got to remember, on the one hand, it is a sporting event for that venue. But on the other hand, it's a television event. And for wrestling fans, some of y'all, if it was 4 nights, 5 nights, you would watch every last one of them. If it was still pay-per-view like it used to be, as opposed to on Peacock, where you just pay your $5.99, $9.99, you would pay it, you would do it. If you could go, you would go. Some of y'all are wrestling fans to the fullest extent. I get it. For the casual wrestling fan, I fit more of that now than being the avid fan that I was at one point. It's a lot. We're talking 8 hours of programming, and several times when I tried to watch the replay, I fell asleep, particularly on night 1, okay? A lot of night 1 they could have kept. It wouldn't even made a good SmackDown or Raw episode a lot of night 1, in my personal opinion. Certain match, like, for example, I agree with Pride, the match between Uso versus Uso, brother against brother, one of the dumbest matches ever. Ever. I'm not just talking about WrestleMania. I mean, ever. We had brother versus brother matches before. You remember when Owen faced Bret Hart? That was a damn good match back in the day, for example. But this match right here, my people, sucked. The final match of night 1 with the whole final boss and Roman Reigns sucked. Too long. You know, I like how they went into the crowd and did all that. Yeah, that was nice and all that, but too long, sucked, okay? The best thing about night one was some of the just in terms of the pyrotechnics and some of the entrances in general. WWE has done a great job with that in recent WrestleManias. This one was no exception. Definitely some great entrances brought in. I really like Rhea Ripley's entrance. I think that was probably really the best match of that night, night one. Truly the Ripley, the Rhea Ripley match against the man, Becky Lynch. That was my favorite match of night one. Like I said, overall, I just was not overly impressed with night one. I really wasn't. Yeah, the Sami Zayn and Gunther match, it was all right for what it was. Gunther usually does give you a decent match. Surprised that they had Sami win the belt on that one, but they did. Definitely what made this WrestleMania better was night two. Night two definitely had less matches, but the better matches of the two. Basically, if you just had night two and you never knew night one existed, you wouldn't be so mad at all. Most of the titles actually changed hands. I'm actually surprised by that. I did not expect that in this WrestleMania. I expected more of the same. I expected Roman Reigns to once again be champion. That didn't happen. Cody Rhodes actually finished the story. He actually did indeed win the WWF Championship, WWE Championship, I should say. Did The Rock fight? Yes, he did fight in night one. He did appear in night two in bits and pieces. He didn't need to be there. He really did. Rock definitely still has the ability to be the Rock in the ring. Remember, he was not ever the best of the best technical wrestlers to begin with, but still, basically, if he was to do it on a regular basis in this day and age, and of course, he is so busy, he cannot. But if he was, he's still a very viable option. He was in tremendous shape. I will say that about pretty much all of the wrestlers. I will give them credit for that. The vast majority of them were in tremendous physical condition. Some of the best condition ever, especially when you look at people like Randy Orton, like AJ Styles. They were in the best physical condition I've ever seen them in, period. But night two definitely was better. I definitely like the Bailey versus Harry Son, that match. Eon, I can't think of that woman's name. I'm sorry, y'all. I can't. Sky. AO Sky, there we go. That was a very good women's match. I really think Sky has not been featured enough in WWE. She is a fine wrestling champion. She should have wrestled more. So we kept seeing more of her skill set. A lot of it did show in that match. The Empress of the Skies, whatever they call her. She definitely had a great match against Bailey. Bailey did win. It basically got the greatest response outside of the final match of any match in WrestleMania. A lot of people definitely like the fact that Bailey won the championship. Don't know how long she's going to keep it. There's a lot of good women wrestlers on both the SmackDown and on the Raw rosters, hell, even on the NXT roster. So I would kind of like to see the belt kind of flop around for a little bit and give some of those ladies the opportunity to be champion for a minute here and there as well. Of course, like I said, Cody Rhodes won the WWE Championship. Congrats to him. Definitely liked the match with starting to be that time of night, y'all. Sorry. That's just how interesting it was at times, some of this WrestleMania. Just did not keep my attention like it would have back in the day. I'm sorry. That's why I'm not remembering some of the names at the moment. I do apologize. But you got Drew McIntyre, that match he had with the champion, Seth freaking Rollins. It was a decent match. Man, he kicked that dude in the face about 6 times when he finally beat him, all to end up losing the belt seconds later to the people in the Judgment Day. Yeah, I just didn't like how that went down. I get it. I just didn't like it. Monday Night Raw actually was a better night than Saturday was, I feel like, in terms of the show. We'll see how SmackDown goes. Me, myself, I pretty much have promised myself that after this WrestleMania, I was going to kind of check out from wrestling for a minute and just wait till SummerSlam. But because so many of the belts kind of changed hands, it kind of drew me back in a little bit. So I guess I'll check in bits and pieces again still. But WrestleMania just didn't do it for me like it used to. It was all right. Like I said, if you have the Peacock platform and you're paying for it, it's worth checking out the replay, I suppose. If not, you can always go on YouTube. I believe they have night 1 and night 2 highlights on YouTube. You can check out in about 30, 40-minute increments. You can check it out that way. Pride or my good buddy Felicia has not checked into the show tonight, but if y'all see this in the replay and whatnot, love to hear your comments on that, particularly Pride. Pride, big wrestling fan that he is. Let me know what you thought, good, bad, and otherwise. Appreciate it. That being said, we're about to shut down the Big Buck Sports Report portion of this program. When we come back, we're going to get into the Guru Sports Session and talk about what we talked about on his side of the show. Ro, pretty much, you're not missing much. Got to be honest. Just not. Personal opinion. Wrestling still do big numbers and all that, but I just wasn't feeling it. Anyway, this has been the Big Buck Sports Report. I'm E-Buck. When we come back, we're going to get into the Guru Sports Session and talk about what we talked about there. That part. Let's show Rose some love again on the way out, shall we?
On Blog Talk Radio or where most great music podcasts are located. Don't forget to subscribe and show some love.
What's going on, good people? Y'all know what time it is. It's time for the Guru Sports Session. And of course, we can't do the Guru Sports Session, that Sports Guru, without the Sports Guru himself. There you have him on the right. We're about to move him on over to the left so he can run the show. That is Hugh Lee. What's going on, Hugh?
What's good, E-Man? Chilling, man. Wanted to kind of get into everything that happened over the weekend. You know, we definitely gonna get into the men's and the women's championship games. And I was close to the predictions, but yeah, it was actually pretty interesting. It was a tale of two halves on both of them, but yeah, it was still good competition. But the women's definitely was in the driver's seat once again as far as the ratings. Hell, they even beat the last ratings with the Iowa UConn, and it's getting to the point now where they're getting so much recognition now that they're breaking records. So yeah, it was actually pretty good to see. And yeah, man, it was a lot of stuff went on over the weekend, man. Like I said too, I actually snuck in while some of the games was at halftime, kind of looked in on some of the UFL too, man. Pretty interesting stuff went on there. The competition is getting pretty good there because a lot of it is starting to be drama filled and at the last minute. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff that we could talk about today, and I wanted to discuss.
Well, absolutely, Hugh. Like I said, busy sports weekend, busy sports week for that matter. So by all means, whatever you're trying to talk about, I got comments on. Let's go.
I want to first start off with the men's championship. And at the beginning of the game, man, or the first half, because you know how weird the men's is. They don't have it like the four quarters. So, you know, the first half, they were going at it. I think that UConn was only up by 6 points at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And Zach Edey was getting off, man. At the time, I knew he had 11 points, and he was straight going to work. But I know that it's been a little heat, too. I like Dan Hurley because, you know, him and Edey was kind of yapping off at each other, which is really good competition. But that second half is what UConn's been doing for the longest, man. They just smothered those guys, man. They wasn't really hitting the shots they need to. I think they got too Edie heavy. And when that happened, man, they faded away because you see they were trying to come back when it was like 2-3 minutes left to try to narrow the lead and try to make it an interesting game. But UConn ran away with it, man. They had a lot of talent over there. And big ups to Tristan Newton, man, because for him to step up the way he did, I do like Donovan.
All right. Well, as you know, he was talking about the men's basketball championship. When we get back, he will continue that discussion. This is the Guru's Football / Sports Session.
Yeah. Really good game between the two teams, but I just feel like Dan Hurley had them guys wanting to play more. And I feel like their big man was just as good as Zach Edey. I do like Donovan, man. I think the dude looked kind of like Gunther. And we was making fun and joking about that. But the dude got game, though, man. I feel like they still going to have a lot to go on to when it comes to the NBA. I still feel like they got a little work, so they're going to have to be a little bit more, D-League heavy, G-League heavy, I mean. But other than that, man, I really enjoyed the game. Not as much as the women's side, but you already know, E, that was true to my heart right there. That was really good competition. But, yeah, man, I give respect to UConn, though, man. This is their 6th championship. Ray Allen definitely wanted to let us know for sure that they won 6 titles. I don't feel like they was getting the respect as the Kentuckys, as the North Carolinas, and even the Dukes. And now I think that you got to definitely keep them up there with them, man, because they're just as good. But to lose 5 starters and to come back, man, and win another championship, that's what was so cool about not only the men's side, but the women's side of the ball. But, yeah, it was a pretty good game, but until like that second half, because that's when they ran away with it. And big ups to UConn too, man, because remember they got beat real bad by Creighton at one point, and they lost a few games. And it was like, man, what the hell wrong with UConn? And a lot of people thought that they wasn't the same team that they were. But once they got into the playoffs, man, they blew out every team they faced. So, yeah, I definitely give credit where credit is due for them to persevere. Not only that, after getting blown out like that in the season from Creighton, but just to stay headstrong and to, know the goal that they were trying to accomplish and accomplishing it. Because going back to back, not easy. Last time we seen that happen was when Florida did it. With Joakim Noah and, Al Horford and all those dudes. So, yeah, man, I definitely give them credit where credit was due.
Definitely want to give credit to that UConn team going back to back, something that is definitely not easy to do in any championship, whether it be college or pro. So there's that. Not getting enough love to the man who architected the whole thing. That would be one Dan Hurley. Understand that Dan Hurley is a basketball lifer. His father, a Hall of Fame high school coach. His brother, a Hall of Fame college player, as well as a good coach over there at Arizona State. And then, of course, Dan, who basically climbed the ranks from college coach to now, from high school coach to now college coach, and is doing an excellent job over there at UConn. I really liked how he has not only taking the players that have been there from the beginning, but also did a great job using the transfer portal, using NIL to help recruit and create a team that is dominant. They actually interviewed him today on one of the talking heads. I do believe it was the Herd, I want to say, with Colin Carr. Shout out to Colin. Just a awesome individual, an awesome teacher of the game, an awesome leader of men. That is definitely what you want in your college coach. And I think it was his leadership that helped lead them to back-to-back. Not to mention, the Big East is definitely underrated as a basketball conference. A lot of great teams in that conference, not just UConn. You had Creighton, you had Seton Hall, you had there's a couple others I want to throw in there. But like I said, Big East is definitely playing some quality basketball there. We have lost you yet again. Give us a minute. When we come back, we will kick it about the women's side of the bracket and the women's championship here on the Guru Sports session. That part. All right, guys, we are back. This is the Guru Sports Session, and we are talking women's basketball championship now. Had two quality games on Friday, another one on Sunday. He was ready to give you his perspective on that there. Floor is yours as usual, my friend. Go for it.
Pissed off with the one game. We predicted it, and I technically still feel like we predicted right when we said that UConn was going to win. But what I felt like I was more upset with now that I set up and even though I felt like that call was very suspect, but it's in competition, and I felt like they should have let the ladies play it out, and they didn't. But we got to look at it too, Ian, say that they were in the lead. They had a pretty good, comfortable lead at one point that I thought that they were going to get that lead and they were going to run with it. What upset me was that they did let Iowa get the lead and then get the momentum, and they made it too close for comfort. So that call shouldn't have been something that changed the momentum. It was just they were tired. I can't even say that they lost focus or anything, man. They didn't really have enough players, and that's the truth. They had 8 injuries on that team. So I still like their chances because they still getting the number 1 recruit coming out of high school. And I still feel like with a couple of plug and plays here, get some more recruits that's coming out, man. And with some of the girls that they still have, I still think that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. It's not over with them yet. Their window is still open. They just needed more players, man. They just got hit with a crappy injury bug. But after they lost that game, I was a little disappointed. But then I said, man, and I'm trying to be funny, Ian, we've been saying this for a while. I think we said this last week. Hell, whoever won, it was going to just be a consolation prize because playing South Carolina wasn't going to be easy. And I didn't think it was going to be fun either, whoever team had to play them. And we can move on to that when you're ready, but I just want to get your opinion on what happened with the game when they played Iowa, UConn, that is.
Okay, yeah, like I said, you mentioned finally that Iowa UConn was the first game that he's talking about. The questionable call that he's mentioning is in regards to a very late offensive foul call that was given to Aaliyah Edwards on what was viewed as a moving screen. Basically, when you look back on the actual play itself, it did fit by definition what it was. What many people were not happy with was the fact that it was called so late in the game, with that being a very crucial part of the game, which is understandable. First of all, I am very proud of my UConn Lady Huskies. They basically played a very tough season this year. When you look at the 6 losses, keeping in mind that UConn has not had 6 losses as the women's team, that is, in a season in over 20 plus years. Okay, that's just how outstanding the UConn Lady Huskies have been over the last decade and a half plus of basketball. So the fact that they only lost 6 games in and of itself was crazy when you consider they played a good part of the season with pretty much just 6 players. Yeah, they had 8 eligible players, but truthfully, the 2 that they had, they really weren't trying to play. One being a freshman, and I feel like Gina wasn't really overly pleased with how she played defensively, and that's why she didn't get much playing time. And then, of course, there is Betancourt, who is a foreign player, and I think they're pretty much doing her a favor by leaving her on the squad. I mean, keep in mind when you draft these kids, you let them know, yeah, you're here to UConn, you're coming for your education and whatnot. Once they get to playing, sometimes you realize they don't fit your program's needs, but because you've promised them a scholarship and you've gotten to know them as people, you kind of have to deal with it a little differently. All that being said, it was a very good game, that UConn Iowa game. Both teams played their heart out that game. It required a lot of energy and focus to keep Caitlin Clark to the point amount that they had in that game. In both that and the championship game, Caitlin Clark took a lot of shots. Okay? And definitely got to give credit to Nika Mule in that game for the lockdown defense that she played on her most of the game. Just remarkable. I have never seen her be that flustered with any opponent in the years that I've watched Caitlin Clark play. So there was that. Then of course there was the play of Paige Becker's. Wasn't her best night either, to be honest, but what I really admired about her was her comments after the game. Not only just in regards to the game itself, but just how the game has been viewed this season, how it will be viewed in the future. Understanding that with her staying to play another year at UConn, the shift probably will go from Caitlin Clark this year to her next year in terms of who the best player is coming out in the next coming draft. And she addressed those things. Also understanding that she is a player of non-color and people will view things because of that. You know, not to so much bring the cards into it, but there's that. But like I said, in terms of the game itself, it was definitely well played, well coached on both sides, and in the end, the better team just won that night. We can go on to the championship game, or you can kind of touch on the other game. Wasn't quite so much of a game with South Carolina and North Carolina, as far as I was concerned.
At the beginning, the halftime was surprised me, E, because it was a really close contested game at first when it came to the half. But then I was about to make some comments about that, like, hey man, it's kind of close right now in the half. But it just seems like when it comes to the game time adjustment, Dawn Staley is really great at that, man, and she's been executing on that level. And that's why when I seen this game, I said, yeah, they're going to do what they got to do. And I think at the end of this, first half, they're going to run away with it. And that's exactly what they did, man. And yeah, I like to give props to Zaya James. She did well. But, she had 20 points. But Camila Cardoza, man, is one of the main reasons why they were at in the championship, the better yet, the Final Four and the playoffs anyway for their undefeated season. We were surprised with that more than anything this year with South Carolina. Not that they wasn't a good team, but the development of Camila Cardoza, because we just always thought she was just a tall, pretty chick. You know what I'm saying? But when we seen her this year, man, it's like she really worked on her game. She's been scoring like 15 points average, maybe 15 a game, but then she'll have like double-digit rebounds as well. And she's blocking the ball. She's getting her team more involved. She was definitely a team leader, and she stepped up to the plate when I didn't even look at her as one of the main focal pieces on the team, which surprised me in how well she adapted and took that role. She reminded me so much of Alea Boston and how she was and how dominant she was in the middle. And so, yeah, man, that adjustment meant a lot, man, because she had like 22 points and she had pretty good game, but the 20 rebounds surprised the hell out of me from Ashlyn Watkins, man. I didn't expect that, E. What were your thoughts?
Well, understand the ACC in terms of women's basketball is a very good conference. That is the conference where you have, of course, teams like Notre Dame, who played very well this year and went pretty far in the tournament. You got teams like Duke and North Carolina who had some decent runs in the tournament as well. Definitely a good basketball conference. North Carolina State, they played extremely well considering all. The main player on that squad actually being a former Gamecock in her own right, you figure she would play with a greater sense of urgency because of that, kind of wanting to show that, okay, y'all shouldn't have let me go and what have you. But bottom line, South Carolina just had too many weapons. Too many weapons. I mean, Ashlyn Watkins, it wasn't a surprise to me because if you've been watching them throughout the season, they've had different people step up and show that, yeah, on any other squad, I would be that girl. But on this squad, I'm just one of the girls. And that was just the case that night for South Carolina.
I definitely agree, E, man. And I'm glad that we hit up on that because that kind of heated up things and getting things together for the championship game. First and foremost, I like to give credit where credit is due on both sides, not just South Carolina, but Iowa, man. Damn, man. They broke a record that day, too, man. They said that NCAA championship game had 18.7 million viewers. And this is the most watched women's college basketball game since 1992.
You understand, people. That's just like if basically everybody in Chicago and New York at the same time stopped everything they was doing and watched basketball. Everybody, every man, woman, child in both cities. And then on top of that, throw in Detroit, Cincinnati, Dayton, all at the same time watching basketball. That's that many people, and then maybe a few extra. So that was remarkable, especially considering that the game was a 3 o'clock afternoon game on a Sunday. I think they probably would have had a bigger audience if they would have played more towards 7, 8 o'clock. That is one of the issues I had, the fact that the men's game played so very late on Monday night and the women's game played so early on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling that, man. And the funny part about it too is it was kind of sad that Shaq said what he said. He said he's been watching both the women because the men side sucked. I don't really think it was really, really bad, but it wasn't nowhere in comparison to the women. And that's a good thing because that's a step in a different direction, man. Because I already know, you already know I got it down, man. I can't wait to get out on my doctor's visit, God's will, on April the 15th, because you already know what I'm going to be doing April the 15th. Even what I'm going to be doing on April the 15th. I want you to advertise this for the people who's been starting to watch WNBA. I've been watching for like the last 2.5 years now. You got to check out that draft, man. There's going to be some heavy hitters in this draft. And it's funny, too, because we look at this draft, and we say it's going to be great. We didn't think it was going to be a better draft than this. Not until we seen these rookies, man, like Fawali, Juju Watkins, and all these women who are playing now, man. And in 4 years, that draft will probably be one of the best drafts ever. And that's going to go down in one of their historic WNBA drafts, I believe, once these women come out. But it's been really good to see, too, man. And just definitely been proud of the women and how they've been playing. The crazy thing was, though, to get back on that game, it was just really bad, man. At first, because like I said, it was close in the first half, and your girl was torching Bree Hall. I think once Raven Johnson got on her, she wanted to take that task. I was scared when it was 29. I was about to say I'm a little nervous and hit you with a text, but when I looked up, it was just like soon as Raven Johnson got on her, she had redemption. She didn't really score a lot, but 2 steals did go in for buckets on their end. But she didn't like have a really big game in scoring, but it didn't matter because at first, your girl Caitlin Clark had like 18 points in that first half, and she was killing Bree Hall. But once Raven Johnson went on her, things drastically changed. If I'm not mistaken, I think she was 5 for 20 with 12 points and 4 turnovers. So yeah, man, she probably didn't get her redemption by playing, offense, but on defense, I believe she definitely got her redemption. And we talked about that before. I looked at it and I didn't really think it was too disrespectful at first, but then when I seen it on ESPN, I said, yeah, it was somewhat disrespectful, but she didn't even attempt when she stepped out to the 3-point line to put defense on her. But at the same time, I felt like Raven Johnson didn't have no confidence neither, because what did she do? She passed the ball. And I said, wow, I was really surprised. But the game plan was, and we talked about that last year. Everybody focused on Leah Boston because that's what their offense was going through. Now this year it totally changed with Tahina Powell and a lot of the perimeter players, man. Those women in the second half couldn't miss. But I was really shocked, Ian. I'll be lying to you if I told you when they got the 3-point lead in the first half that I wasn't surprised. I was really surprised. But then I said, once the second half come, man, I said they're going to probably run away with it. And I know Iowa was trying to get close, but every time they got close, it just seemed like, South Carolina pulled away with it. You had everybody just shooting shots, man. They were cutting, man. Tahina, Teresa, and it was just really a crazy tell of two tapes, because you remember last year they didn't really shoot the 3 ball like that. They more or less focused on Leah Boston in the inside game. And now, man, when you got like one of the better point guards in the game, Malaysia Fawali and Tahina Powell, and you got Raven Johnson and all these weapons on the team, man, that perimeter game and that outside game, man, it was fun to watch, even because those women didn't miss in that second quarter, man. Maybe I just seen it from the highlight perspective, but tell me if I'm wrong, man, because everything they was shooting was going in.
All right, here's the thing, y'all. Remember, we broke down the game plan of how we felt UConn would beat Iowa last week. They almost pulled it off, by the way, as we know. The difference is they had to play it that way because of the amount of people they had playing for UConn. It's a different story for South Carolina.
Yes.
The deal was not that for South Carolina they had to shut down Caitlin Clark, nor do I think that was even part of the game plan. The key was that we have our weapons. They got to shut us down. So, yeah, early on when Caitlin started to go off, I'm sure there were people that was concerned. I was not. I was not because I watched the reaction of Coach Dawn Staley. And thank God that that woman is getting her flowers now, and all the great stories are coming out about her, some of which I will talk about on Big Buck Sports Report on the other side of this. But the thing was, I saw her, you know, most coaches in that situation, they would have called timeout, been like, yeah, calm down, everybody. You notice Dawn did not call a timeout. She let them play through it. I think she expected this to happen that way, and she knew that it was in her best interest to let them work it out amongst themselves to figure out what they needed to do. When they did get a timeout, it was them who decided, okay, Raven, it's time for you to get on her and go ahead and shut that down. And as you notice from that last minute in the first half up until the rest of the game, when Raven locked in, particularly defensively, that was what changed the tide, because after that, not only did Iowa have the problem of having to stop several people on that South Carolina team, like Fu Wiley, like Tessa Johnson, like Watkins, like of course Cardosa, but they also had to get they scoring on, and they wasn't able to do it. It was just too much defense being played by the entire South Carolina team.
Yeah, and Tessa and Tahina Powell were sharp shooters, man. They were shooting the three ball and really good too, and surprising enough because that's what they really needed over there. Because remember last year we said if they would have had a little bit more outside shoot, man, if they did, we wouldn't even be talking about the same thing. We'd be talking about more history on their side. Because definitely think about it, if that happened and they had like Tahina Powell and Tessa Johnson shooting the way she was shooting, guess what? We wouldn't be talking about them just winning the championship and being 38-0, but we'd be talking about a three-peat, you know, and I don't think that ever happened, you know, but it was just really good to see that and to see that they made their adjustments and got their redemption this year. But one thing you told me, E, do you remember what you told me after they beat North Carolina State? You remember what you told me after that game once we finally found out it was going to be South Carolina and Iowa? Remember the
No, I
text
do
that you
not
gave
recall.
me? You told me, Hugh, even if Caitlin Clark scores 40 points, they will not win because they don't have enough weapons to deal with South Carolina. And I looked at it and I said, okay, even if she did have 40, I still think that they wouldn't have won that game. You was absolutely right.
Right. I mean, hell, Stephen A. Smith on First Take went one step further. He felt like Caitlin had to have 50 to beat him. And I had to be honest, with 50, I think they definitely wouldn't have beat him, because that would have meant that she took so many shots that nobody else was doing anything
whatsoever. And that's why I give UConn their flowers, man, because UConn had 6 undefeated seasons with championships. And the only other teams that ever went undefeated, they only won one, and that's Baylor, Tennessee, Texas, and South Carolina. They only had
and
one
then also
6 times.
Also keep in mind, Hugh, you said that no team has ever three-peated. That's correct, because one team is actually four-peated. That, of course, will be the UConn Huskies during the time that Brianna Stewart was on the squad and won 3 most valuable players and 3 players of the year. And then, of course, there was that debate a lot this weekend as to who was the greatest college player of all time. And a lot of people did bring up her name as opposed to Caitlin Clark because of that accomplishment.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's hard to do, man, because a lot of pressure was on Caitlin Clark too, man. And she didn't have the plethora of weapons like some of the other teams. But hey, you decided where you wanted to go. I mean, it is what it is. That's just the name of the game. And UConn always had the juggernauts over there, man. And just think about it, those women were healthy, man. And it's still going to be a team to be reckoned with because they're going to come back stronger next year. When you showed me the #1 recruit in that class, I said, damn, she can do everything, man. So, yeah, they're still going to be a threat.
Man, I understand for as great as this season has been for women's college basketball, and, you know, I, as a person who from the beginning in the Nighthawk Network, and, of course, you can attest to this as anybody who's frequently watched the network has, has been a big time advocate for women's sports, big time. And let me send a shout out to my guys, Bruce Howard and Joe Richardson, who basically have been watching the women's basketball through the year and had several debates, and I joined in. And I'm telling you, Bruce, I've been an advocate from a long, long time, my friend. This is the best women's college basketball has been ever. And I understand there's been a lot of greats. I don't want to disrespect any of them. I even go back to the great Ann Myers, Drysdale herself, in terms of great women's basketball players. But when you look at the overall product that we're seeing now, with all the various training camps and travel leagues and AAU and whatnot, women's college basketball is in great hands. It will continue to grow. Hopefully, the WNBA will get into some expansion so that more of these young ladies can actually stay in the country after they play college basketball, and they don't have to go out to the various leagues across the world and find themselves in unfortunate situations similar to that of the great Brittany Griner. So glad she is home now. But yeah, I mean, just look at what we got left still after this great draft we're gonna have with all the great freshmen that we had throughout the country. We just named a few of them. Don't forget about the Helena Hidalgos and man, it's so many, it's just you really got to look into the sport as a whole. And it's like every other team seems to have a player that's on the verge of greatness and we'll be talking about for years to come. I am so glad that the rules presently have it to where the ladies have to stay till they are age 22 or their graduating season so that we get to know them better than we would if they would go to the WNBA and probably end up not playing after a couple of years because they didn't get the chance to develop and grow. And of course, I'm definitely looking forward to next season. South Carolina gonna have another great squad. LSU gonna have another great squad. The UConn Lady Huskies should be outstanding. As you said, they have not only the number one recruit in the country, but three of the top 15 recruits in the country coming in that class. And of course, USC has the number one recruiting class in the country coming in to play with Juju. So yeah, we're gonna see a lot of great basketball in years to come. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I wish it all started again tomorrow.
Yeah, man. It's gonna be pretty good, man. We got this draft about to come up, man, and then we got the WNBA season. I definitely want to see what the Las Vegas Ace is gonna do, man, because they was fun to watch, man. To do what they did the last 2 years, and very close to going undefeated at one point, man. And yeah, I definitely want to see what they're gonna have if they winning the championship again. The most hated person now in the world, and I didn't really pay no attention until you hit me with that right after that happened, is for when anybody want to put the GOAT in any conversation right now, you still got to have Tom Brady in that conversation, because not only does he have 7 championships as a player, he has one as a co-owner now, because he was at the right place at the right time with them, man, investing in the Aces. So yeah, it's gonna be really fun to watch, man, because you still got Stewie, Diana Taurasi, and a lot of those heavy hitting women over there.
Right. And man, I can't wait till that first night when we got Caitlin Clark versus Diana Taurasi, especially at the comments that she made on her show that night. That's gonna be epic.
Do you think they was feeling some kind of way about that call too, or you just think that they just like licking their chops, like, okay, you good in college, but we want to see what you do in the WNBA, because them women now in the WNBA, they ain't trying to be all nice and stuff, man. They being out there and bold, and they speak their mind, and it's not like she's being disrespectful or dissing her, Caitlin Clark, of course. It's just that Diana Taurasi love the competition, man.
You have to understand, by the time the WNBA season is over, not only will Diana Taurasi still be the all-time leading scorer in WNBA history, the all-time three-point leader in WNBA history, the best free throw percentage per volume in WNBA history, a 2-time champion, but also, to add to that, a 5-time gold medalist, because ain't no way we losing in the Olympics with the squad that we about to put on the floor. And for as good as that squad gonna be in 2024 in Paris, when Olympics is here in the United States 4 years from now, imagine who will be on that squad. When you got people like Caitlin Clark and Juju and Paige Beckers to go with people still like Brittany Griner and Asia Wilson and Brianna Stewart, man, that squad gonna be out of hand.
Yeah, man.
Aaliyah Boston.
There's gonna be a lot of good stuff going on.
Absolutely.
I know you looked at the show just recently, but I wanted your thoughts. That's what I was waiting on, man, because I know you're chilling right now. You got on your glasses, you in your cool mode. But a lot of stuff that happens, and I'm moving on to the baseball with the pitch clock. They were kind of pissed off, the MLBPA, because they feel like a lot of our heavy hitting pitchers are out of the game right now due to the fact that they speeded up the game as far as the pitching. I kind of somewhat agree, but then I'm still looking at it too, like, well, I might not been tripping as much if Garrett Cole ain't get hurt because my Yankees. But at the same time, man, they do have a little gripe with that, and that's kind of more like, yeah, we understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to put more offense to the game, and they feel like how the rules changed in the NFL, like, man, we're not getting no chance on defense or, to really do anything. You guys want offense, and you're not giving us that opportunity. And they feel like now being rushed on the pitch clock. And that's why they think a lot of guys are out here being injured, because you got so many seconds or so much time to get the ball to the plate. And it's a lot of good players that's been hurt from that too, man. We got a lot of good starting pitchers that's not in the game because of that. And I don't know if it's all about the pitch clock. I feel like MLBPA feel like it's because of the pitch clock, and MLB feel like because of the lies are holding the ball and they're squeezing it and they're throwing it with more velocity. I wanted to know your takes on that, E.
I kind of got a different take on this, to be honest. You understand that, we already know why the pitch clock was put in part of the whole rule situations, because they're trying to cut down the amount of time for the game. A lot of people citing that the reason why they're not big baseball fans is because the amount of time that your typical baseball game takes. I myself, as a lifelong baseball fan, that being my first love, I don't mind the time scenario at all. But I get why people have that problem, especially in this day and age of instant gratitude, YouTube videos and such. I get it. That being said, part of the problem is the way in which we are developing our pitchers now, where we are teaching them to throw with more velocity on a more continuous basis. Your average pitcher throws 94 to 95 miles an hour. As a person who on a good day probably could get over about 75, and my arm used to be sore from that, I can only imagine what it feels like to be throwing 90, because particularly if you are one of those relievers that pitch every other day. There's that rare exception, of course, your Nolan Ryan, your I can't think of his name right now. Pittsburgh Pirate reliever, Aroldis Chapman, who basically wake up throwing 100. There's those guys, but for the most part, the people that are basically conditioning themselves to do that, they are putting their body in a bad way also. I mean, Verlander, if anybody who definitely has spoken out about this, if anybody should know about the effects of that, it should be that man, considering he has been a flamethrower his whole life, and it has affected him in his later years, even though when healthy, still one of the best, if not the best pitcher in baseball. For him to speak on it in the way that he has, lets you know that, yeah, it's definitely an issue. And of course, when you are big fans of certain people, in particular, the one guy that we always want to talk about, because when Jacob deGrom is healthy, he is a next level pitcher beyond other. But it seems like he is never healthy these days. And part of that reason is probably because of the velocity issue. And I'm sure the pitch clock has definitely not been helpful to pitchers like him. Now, of course, yeah, as you pointed out, because his team, the Yankees, I always feel some type of way about anybody who does not live in New York as a Yankees fan. But just like people who are Dallas Cowboy fans or people who are Laker fans, you know how that goes. When all is said and done, Do they need to adjust the pitch clock to where it's more beneficial to pitchers? Probably so. Do they need to get rid of it altogether? No, because that is the primary reason why we feel like the games in general have gone down time wise from like a little bit over 3 hours to closer to 2.5. So they had to come with some type of compromise to work this thing out. In the meanwhile, as far as the pitching goes, they just want to formulate some way to make it a little easier for them to contend with, or go back to not throwing as hard. One of the other.
Yeah, because some of the notable pitchers, man, it was out from that. It's crazy too, because this Garrett Cole, he had the elbow inflammation, and then you got Shane Bieber with the elbow, and Justin Verlander, he had issues with his shoulder, and then I'm thinking your man's Clayton Kershaw just always injured. It ain't like, you know what? He's more like the, I can't even say the Ben Simmons, but he more like the AD of pitchers, man. Back when AD was constantly injured. Do you agree with that, E?
Can't argue that point. He is the glass jaw of the league, and it's crazy you bring it up. As of course now AD is hurt himself nowadays yet again, but another story for another sport. Yeah, like I said, it's probably a couple of those baseball rules that are not so beneficial to both sides, not just the pitchers but the hitters as well. I think a lot of the extra strikeouts that we're seeing is a result of the time clock and batters not having time to kind of get themselves
Yeah,
situated.
agree.
Because if you notice some of the better pitchers, they basically don't use up a lot of the clock to begin with. They actually use it to their advantage. But in the same token, yeah, they're gonna have to make some adjustments somewhere down the line. Bottom line.
Because you're right, because they know you can't be up in that box playing around. You can't be doing timeouts, and you know how they be messing with the gloves and swinging at the dirt and kicking, and you can't do all that crap no more. You get up in that box, you better be prepared to swing. And if you're not, like you say, man, I've seen when the time went out and it wasn't on the pitcher and it was on the actual batter, and guess what? You out. We seen that determine games last year. Like, damn, what happened? So yeah, man, they got to fix it to where they kind of make it work on both sides, like you were saying. It's been
Right.
crazy though.
Somewhere Mike Hargrove, the man known as the human rain delay, is not happy. And the great Mark the Bird Fidrus is rolling his grave right now because of these pitch clock situations and not having time to talk to the ball and all that like Mark used to do. Love that. But yeah, it's definitely an issue. It's something they got to work with. I mean, in an ideal world, let's be honest. The two best things baseball probably could do to make it a bit more exciting and accessible to people, they can't do because it would change the rule, not so much the rule book, but the records of baseball. In the end, they probably should go from 9 innings to 7 innings, just like softball. That's something I definitely don't see baseball ever doing. It makes sense to do because that solves a lot of the pitching issues because pitchers don't have to strain themselves as much. Basically, in order to get a good quality start, you'll have to pitch 5 innings instead of 7. So that'll save some arms and whatnot. Some of the law of the game would be different because you have to strategize a lot different when you only got 7 innings as opposed to 9. Again, something they will not do. In terms of the 162 game season, we cut that to about 140. Again, something they will probably never do. It makes sense to do because think about it. A lot of these games in April rained out, too cold, all type of situations. Some snowed out even. If we could pretty much eliminate most of April and get started like near the end of April and then go on, that's probably better quality baseball overall. But again, something I don't see them doing. So until then, baseball just want to figure its way.
I had to look too, E, man. It's damn near one game or two. Sometimes it even be 3 games postponed. And we have another one, the Mets and Braves. And usually, like you said, it's in the early part of April. So, yeah, man, they should definitely consider something like that. And like you said, the less games, because remember, they were kind of like on a borderline strike for a minute. And I think it was more like a COVID situation they wanted to say, but we knew it was more or less about the MLBPA and them trying to come to a new agreement too, E. So they're not surprising. They're not fooling us with that. But it was exciting. At first, it seemed like it came off slow. But once it picked up, like in the warmer months, it really picked up, man. And it was exciting to see. And that was right before they did the rule changes. So just imagine if they like shrunk the games down to 140 and then, had it like that. And then the 7 innings too. Yeah, that'll definitely make baseball so much more faster pace. But I think they still look at it too, like with the 9 innings. Sometimes the games might be too tight and they just want to see the theatrics of a walk off or what have you. But yeah, they still gonna have a little bit of lab work to do on to still kind of tweak baseball and make it more exciting. Because, like you said, we're more diehard fans of baseball, and it's not a lot of people to still like to watch it out there because of they still say the same issues, how boring it is, and how long the game takes, even though they did these tweaks to try to speed up the game.
Absolutely. Let me also say, going back to our previous discussion about men's college basketball, yeah, that's definitely one of the big differences that they really need to go on and make. Understand that NBA has 4 quarters, women's basketball has 4 quarters, WNBA has 4 quarters. It's time for men's college basketball to follow suit.
I
Uh,
don't like that.
some of the quarters are just way too long, that 20-minute half. Can't do it no more, man. It's time for y'all to go on and join the rest of the world.
I was so confused at one point, man, when I first started watching because I was more or less focused on watching like the NBA. But when I really got into it, man, when the Eric Montrose is in and Chris Webber's in Fab Five and stuff, the halves are so crazy, man. Like 20 minutes. Like, come on, man. I feel like they should have definitely changed that because when I looked at it, I was like, it's only two halves and the men and the four and the women. What's the holdup, man? I definitely didn't like that. And that's something, like you said, they should have been changed, man. And that's probably taken away from their game too, man, because it drags on and sometimes it drags on so much. Guess what? If I find something else to tune to, I'm going to tune to it and watch it and I might come back to it around the half, to watch the second, half. But yeah, man, that's starting to make for boring basketball, especially in the men's division. And that's why I think the Shaquille O'Neal might have had some words to say, like it takes too long and it sucks, and it's sad for them to say that. And I wouldn't down, college basketball, but yeah, they got to do better on the men's side as far as the quarters, man, and suffer making the game so long and dragged out.
Absolutely. All right, what you got next for us, you?
Man, I want to sneak in a little bit of that UFL because, like I said, man, and it's unfortunate that the men's game's been so long and drawn out. I snuck in and I watched some games. One of the games that caught me off guard because I was like, I seen Wade Phillips. I said, damn, I didn't know Wade Phillips was still coaching. He coached the San Antonio Brahmas. And I seen Memphis Showboats playing. And that game at first I was about to change it, because I looked at it and I said, what the hell is going on? Because Showboats was like kind of walking away with it. And it wasn't like they were blowing him out. It was field goal here, field goal there, touchdown, just good defensive play on both ends. So I said, okay, should I stop watching this game or should I watch this second half, man? Dude, in that fourth quarter, when before I was about to turn it off, they scored like 14 unanswered points, man. And the game was only by 5. And Wade Phillips' team came back and won that game. That really caught me off guard. And I said, man, that being said, I didn't get a chance to finish watching the game in the Detroit game because when I saw it at first, I was getting so frustrated that I said, I'm not going to watch it no more. And he was like, Hugh, you got to stop doing that because I did that several times and didn't see the outcome of the game. And with that field goal kick he made was historic. And then this last game I saw, I didn't want to watch it because there was too much suspense, but some told me to watch it, and they were close, man. They were close to getting in the red zone. They just couldn't make it. And that was a really good game between them and the Stallions. And, when I seen that, I was like, man, there's more dramatic endings and there's a lot of drama and it's filled with more action and drama than I was used to. And I said, well, man, yeah, it's pretty good because for the games that I've been seeing in the competition, they'll kind of keep you on your toes, man. So a lot of those games were settled in the last minutes too. So yeah, I definitely give UFL more props because it's doing better than the USFL and the XFL ever done. Them merging is good, man, and it's good for that product. And we're going to see a lot of those guys coming over to the NFL. And, the time around OTAs, you probably see some of those guys sliding in. But before the regular season, you're going to see a lot of those guys come over to the NFL. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Michigan Panthers kicker don't hit him a team soon, because I know the Lions looking for him, man. And it'll definitely be great to get somebody who we could trust leg wise.
Understand that young man has already been invited to Lions training camp and ain't even did the draft yet. That's how impressed they was with his performance. But again, I'm liking the UFL because it's got more of a feel of this is the best of the best of the rest. Okay. When you go into it with the understanding that this is not the NFL and you should not expect NFL style play in the UFL, but you should expect some decent football. And that's definitely what we're getting. Understand, I think part of it is the fact that it's just the 8 teams, and a lot of the people on those teams are former NFL players, people that at least been to NFL training camps, people who have done 4 years of college. A lot of that comes into play in this league to where you see the type of play that we get. You got some good running backs in this league. You got some decent receivers in this league. But the thing that I've been most impressed with so far is the defensive play of pretty much
Yeah.
all the squads. Because of that, I don't see there's going to be any one team in the league that's going to be heads and shoulders above the rest. If I was to pick who might win this league right now, I probably would go with either the Arlington squad or the Birmingham squad, because they seem to be slightly better than the other teams, but would not be surprised if any of them end up winning the championship in the UFL. There are no super suck teams from what I see so far. They all kind of like close
Been
to each
evenly
other in terms
matched.
of, huh?
You're right. It's been evenly matched. I'm gonna break down the scores that happened Saturday.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Brahmas and Showboats, man. The game was won by the touchdown, but it was 2019. Renegades and Battlehawks was 24-27. Stallions and Panthers, they were getting on the cusp of closing that game. I thought that we had a chance, and that's why I kept watching it. But we ended up falling short. But the Stallions won 20-13, and the Roughnecks and Defenders was 18-23. So it's not like we're seeing a lot of blowouts there. We're seeing a lot of dramatic endings and a lot of good competition over there. So yeah, it's definitely been making for the UFL to make a stamp on everything. And I just snuck in and was watching the games and enjoyed it. Enjoyed it so much. Guess what? I put it on my Instagram page. So you already know what's up. If there's gonna be some good highlights, I'm gonna put it on that page and I'm gonna put it on the TikTok page. So yeah, they definitely impressed me enough to where I said let me start following them on Instagram. And that's big because I definitely will be advertising a lot more of it once I see some of the good play around the league.
Absolutely. And like I said, let me point out that the crowds have been rather impressive in a lot of these games so far, especially St. Louis. St. Louis, you need to start rallying towards getting an NFL team back in St. Louis. Clearly, y'all still have a great love for football there. You are great sports fans to begin with. When you look at how you've turned out for the St. Louis Blues and the Cardinals, no matter whether they World Series contenders or the suck, they always draw a very good crowd there in Busch Stadium. So I definitely would like to see NFL football return to St. Louis at some point because they are definitely a good fan base. And bottom line, Commanders, y'all need to get it together in DC because that's just the tip of the iceberg, what you see with the Defenders crowd. And that's a very good crowd as well. So imagine if you had a good NFL team there, what type of turnout you would get at the NFL level for DC if they had a good team. So, yeah, definitely been impressed by the crowds of the UFL. Okay, we don't hear Hugh. Give us a second, y'all. We'll be right.
Yeah, man. Seattle got to do a better job too, man, because I like that Seattle Supersonics team. They had a really big crowd, man, and it's just weird, man. After hearing that song, I just heard the song "Today Was a Good Day," and I'm like, okay, how the hell you go rhyme? I had the boom, she had the chronic. The Lakers beat the OKC Thunder. That don't go.
No, that just don't quite hit the same, do it?
Don't hit the spot like that, man. I definitely hope they figure that out, because like you said, they got a Seattle team over in hockey now too, man. We got the Seahawks still. Come on, man. Y'all need to bring a team back to the NBA, man. I'm definitely looking forward to that as well.
Absolutely. But yeah, like I said, people check out that UFL. It's good football. It is.
Definitely been worth me watching too, man. I didn't know the kicker, what was his name, destroying or something crazy like that. I didn't know he was out hurt, man. That kind of put a damper on the game, because you look at him and I was like, man, that dude, to be a kicker, man, to be that well known is actually pretty cool, man. But him being hurt kind of took away, kind of, sucked a little bit, and I didn't like that. But I still feel like regardless, they're gonna have a good product to put out there. So I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I'm excited to see them moving forward. Like I said, now I follow them, so the highlights is gonna be on my page now. So to give
Right.
other
So, like I
people
said,
the chance.
if the UFL has won over the sports football guru, I'm sure it could win you over too. One thing I really wish they did, I understand that they want to kind of stay away from the gimmicky stuff that they had going on in the XFL, but
Like
man,
names,
the coolest thing they did was the nicknames, man.
yeah, I did like that.
He hate
That
me, I
was
will
good.
never forget as long as I
Man,
live.
you would never forget. I forgot a lot of the other names, but you would never forget he hates me. That dude was nuts. And they focus more on football too, except for the entertainment, like some other people did. But yeah, man, it's been really good, and definitely been enjoying their product. And it's only 2 weeks in, and like I said, I slipped up the first week, but it was so much competition going on in college, man, that I had to be more focused on that. But now that it's been over now for like this week, I definitely got a lot more to do with them. And then because I can keep my eye on them and then still focus on the NBA playoffs, which is coming up soon.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, last game of the season is this Sunday.
Yeah, man. How did you feel too, E, before we get off, man? Because this is the last thing I want.
All right, we can't hear you at the moment. Give us a second here.
Yeah. You hear me now?
There we go.
Yeah, my
We
mic
got
keep
you.
going here. But how did you feel about the game yesterday? I didn't really feel like Boston should even play the players, but I understand they like, man, we want to keep our players, playing, and because most times when you rest them, sometimes you could get hurt or you just be rusty, like how it happened so many years in both basketball and football. But when I mean on that too, is not even really on the Boston Celtics side. But damn, Giannis got hurt yesterday, man. The same injury. I don't know, man. That's gonna be a problem with them, man, because yeah, they got a really good team surrounding Giannis, but remember before in the playoffs, Giannis was hurt and came back and he wasn't the same. I don't think he's gonna be the same after suffering the same injury this year leading into the playoffs.
Here's the thing. Now, I understand back in the day, and not that far back in the day, most players was playing 75 to 82 games, and it didn't seem to be a problem. They didn't seem to get hurt as much. I don't know what it is about injuries the last 5 years, but it seemed like every other major player in the NBA has had some type of significant injury in the last 48 months. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's the travel. I don't know if it's more of a wear and tear. I don't know if I'm not sure what it is, but that seems to be the case. And now, of course, that they're requiring most of them in order to get the bigger supermax deals and to get the postseason awards to play at least 65 games. Some of them are basically trying to scramble out just to make that happen. And as a result, they get injured. I mean, look at just the last couple weeks. Not only do you got Giannis hurt, there's an injury with Anthony Davis right now. Kyrie is injured. There's an issue with the Clippers with James Harden. It's like, dude, what can we do here? I have no idea. I mean, I'm not even sure what's going on. I think I want to say Cade Cunningham didn't even play. And of course, that's an issue for us if it's because he's injured for real, because he basically been injured every year he's been in the league. I will say that since we already know their outcome, they're not making the playoffs, and I will safely assume they won't make the playoffs again next year as presently constructed. I say the plan for them is to get rid of the GM. Sorry, bro. You got to go. And everybody. I said everybody on the Pistons squad can get it. And when I mean get it, I mean trade it. And yes, I mean everybody.
One more thing I wanted to hit you with too, E, man, the whole full circle MLB thing. How do you feel about my man's Matt Halliday's son playing, man, getting called up? He got called up pretty damn fast too, man. And I don't really think, or I don't even know if the Orioles are struggling like that, but to call him up that fast, man, that means they have a lot of high hopes for this dude, man. And it's cool because I seen a picture of him just recently when he was with his dad. And when he was a baby, and then I think I sent it to you too. And now he's going to be one of the prospects from the Baltimore Orioles that's going to come up and he's going to play.
I definitely would like to see more of the young guys come up quicker now. Back in the day, it seemed like there was the occasional Bryce Harpers and Mike Trouts that basically spent a good 1 year in the minors and then came up. Then every now and then you had that supreme bonus baby that pretty much started out the summer league, and then next thing you know, they was up in the league. I would like to see more of that happen, to be quite honest. But I just like the fact that there's a lot more of the sons and grandsons of major league players coming in the league. I think that's definitely helpful for baseball in order to make it more relatable and to give them some type of storyline. Because right now, best player in baseball, he barely speak English. And a lot of the better players in baseball are Dominican players and Spanish players. No disrespect to any of them, to my Latino people, because I love my Latino people. But as far as American speaking, English speaking players that have some type of some type of shine to them, it ain't that many in baseball, and I think that's part of where they suffer. Same with hockey. Many of the best players in hockey. Canadian players, foreign players.
But
and the best American player in hockey plays in Toronto. So it's like,
well, that's
it's crazy. I mean, because think about it. We've been on for an hour now. Hockey about to go into the playoffs. We ain't mention him. We don't really care. It's sad.
Not at all, man. I wish that we had more parity on them, but I actually don't. At the end of the day, on that note, E, I would like to say definitely appreciate the advertisement and the things you've been doing for my pages, man. It just network.
Well, yeah, we still got to get on the production team. There's still a lot more we need to do. But hold on, Hugh. Before we sign off, one more quick thing I want to get your opinion on, because you had some very interesting opinions upon it. One of the big stories of this week that has broken is the fact that John Calipari has decided to leave the University of Kentucky and take a job at the University of Arkansas. I kind of want to get your thoughts on that, and then I want to kind of get you mad.
Definitely not surprised him leaving. I never really felt like he was the most loyal coach there is, man. I really felt like he was very unloyal. He's one of the most unloyal coaches that I've ever seen in a game.
I definitely. Uh-oh. After that, we kind of had some technical issues. Sorry about that. We will not have Hugh on next week. It is his birthday week, and he's going to spend some time getting his birthday and born day on. So happy early birthday to Hugh. We basically ended with Calipari. Like I said, I feel like he was as loyal as his options. He went with the money. I'm not mad at him myself. Hugh definitely felt a little differently about it. Before we go, I also want to announce that, today's big news also is the fact that Tar Vandermeer, who at this point in time is the all-time winningest coach in Division I history, both men or women, has decided to retire from being the head coach of the Stanford Cardinal. She basically did not get the due that she really deserved, keeping in mind that there were bigger, more higher profile coaches out there in her time in basketball. When you look at the Coach Oriema's and, of course, the great Pat Summits of the world, even with the recent uprising of that great coach, Dawn Staley, she was not pretty much put in that upper echelon like she should have been, but she did win multiple national championships at Stanford. Like I said, she won the most games of any head coach, men or women's. That's including people like the great Coach K. So there is that. Understand also she had the interesting issue of the fact that she is the coach of Stanford, which has a higher academic standard than most schools. So not only does she have to recruit the best and brightest players, but also get them to play team basketball on a very high level that could lead to winning championships. So I imagine if she did not have those standards as she did at Stanford, if she would have basically stayed at Ohio State, which I believe was the team that she coached before Stanford, that she may have had even more championships under her belt because of that. But definitely want to give her due before we cut out to the great Tara Vandermeer. Hopefully she will enjoy her retirement. And I definitely look forward to seeing her in some capacity on WNBA broadcast or perhaps even on a broadcast on ESPN. Even though, at 70 plus, that might not be something she chooses to do, but definitely something she could do. She definitely speaks well of basketball and would love to hear some of her thoughts on the game as it continues to grow. Anyway, that is it for the Big Bucks Sports Report and for the Guru Sports Session. Again, catch Hugh on IG, catch him on TikTok, catch him on Facebook. There are all the various platforms you can catch Hugh Lee on. If you're not sure, then let's play his promo before we head on out the door so you have an understanding. And that is that. This has been Nighthawk Network presentation. We out of here. Please rest up. H2 as always. We love you. We love y'all. Peace.